and more news is now pouring in. Well, we've learned there are some reports. Surinder Lali, let me bring you in on this. We've learned that this is a 22-year-old Utah resident, Tyler Robinson. There are reports coming in online that he was turned in by his father, that he confessed to his father, who is a 27-year veteran of the Washington County Sheriff's Department, as per the Daily Mail. Right, this is not our information at this point in time, but it's been reported. And his father then contacted authorities and secured his son before he could be taken into custody. That's point number one. Secondly, there are people who've now started, of course, their own investigation into who this 22-year-old young man is. And what we're learning is that he was an exceptionally bright student. There are people who've managed to pull out his report cards from his college and school days, and he's a really bright student. I'm looking at all straight 100%, or at least in the 90 to 100% percentile as far as most subjects are concerned. So here's a bright young man in Utah who's managed to get his hands on a gun and decided to shoot Charlie Kirk at the very minute when he was talking about mass shootings in America. What does this tell us about the state of America today, Surinder Lali?
I'm going to use some strong terminology, so I wish to apologize to Mr. Vikri, Purnima, and Ravi in advance. Is America imploding? I mean, despite the hegemonic, depreciation outside, is America really out to implode? Because very unfortunate that I don't think this is the last of it either. With the number of guns that are in the United States, with the number of geniuses, knowledge is like it's a knife which works both ways, and unfortunately, in the collapse of the family system, a lot of children are looking for some sort of validation. I mean, thank God that he was caught alive. Otherwise, a lot of these people want to create place in history and some sort of validation. So they probably take on to the law. So I guess, a minister from the church and his father was involved in maybe in a dignified or a proper manner, bringing him to the cops. Otherwise, he had every reason to further, create more damage to the society. But Devika, is very unfortunate. Look at what's happening in America. I mean, a president who's out for retribution and validation, and the tariffs are in court. The Ukraine war, which he said he's going to finish up in 24 hours, the genocide in Israel, the National Guard, and especially in the democratic states, the Epstein files, the inflation, the rise of Mamdani. That's something also we need to look at too, because there is pathological hatred for the radical left, and South Korea, who's their ally, and we invested, and they had, I think, a jet load, deported back. So I feel there is a lot of worry that the Americans need to do. And the worst thing is that they're still not heading in the right direction, because I was just listening to Nancy Mace on CNN, who's a Republican and is running for office. And instead of addressing the problem, she's talking about bulletproof doors and windows in her office and in the schools. I mean, this is not the end of the solution. They're probably looking at the wrong end to look for a solution to this. So it's very unfortunate that the affluent America, in which I think every politician ought to be worried, because all it takes is one kid who probably, and especially Utah as a state, where guns are very relevant and people go out hunting. So all it took was one 22-year-old to make world news. So that ought to give you an idea of how fraught, polarized, and explosive the United States of America is. And yes, the Indian who was beheaded at his motel, and there are an N number of incidents. So my worry is even more personal, because I don't vote in the US anymore, is the racist attacks that is going to come on us Indians. I mean, us being affluent, us being a visible target, is something that I'm even worried about more. I mean, in the 80s when I was growing up, there was a gang called the Dot Busters who used to go out and hit Indian women because they were a bindi or a dot on the head. And me wearing a turban now, on the way, a Sikh gentleman in California was virtually beaten to death by a golf club, and not to mention the trucker issue. I absolutely don't stand in any form of support to that illegal Sikh who took a wrong U-turn. But now painting the entire community and the kind of hate that is coming on social media, Houston doesn't have a problem, but America has a serious problem now.